Welcome everyone to Ask Me Anything Trucker Edition. We have Jeremy here who commented on one of my YouTube videos, and I just asked him if he would come on the podcast, and he was graciously willing to do so. So I know that all of you who are trolling me in the comment section, be careful because I may ask you to come on the podcast at some point. Anyway, Jeremy, this is how good we are. We weren't even planning to do this on the day that all of these truck drivers are protesting at the Port of Oakland, but that's just how good this is. You have your day off, and here we are. We're going to talk about what the heck is going on, supply chain issues, fuel prices, truckers quitting, California regulations, all that good stuff. But before we get to this first topic, why don't you give us all a brief intro? And I should just let everybody know I'm a little under the weather. I have some upper respiratory thing happening right now, so I hope you enjoyed the sultry, sick Allison version of my voice, but that's okay. You're not here for me anywhere. You're here from Jeremy. Okay, Jeremy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, my name is Jeremy. I own my own company. I've started it back in December. So I am an independent motor carrier. Um, and yeah, I've been working. I've actually been a truck driver for 2.5 years now. Um, and so yeah, I know a little bit about it. I don't know everything, but yeah, it's a interesting industry, that's for sure, and a very important industry. Because I think if I remember right, over 90%, maybe even 99% of everything that's in your stores or like your fuel stations and all that are moved by a truck. So it is a very important industry, and yeah. Um, and then we
Let's
go into these topics here where people are quitting.
yeah, I want to let's talk about this first part real fast. So
Mm,
when you were talking about how your status is compared to other truck drivers. Maybe
mm,
that's something we should talk about real fast before we get into this. Can you
yes.
give us the different ways that a commercial truck driver works? Just like the different, you know what I mean? Like you own your
Yeah,
own
yeah.
truck, or
Mm.
you work for someone else and they have the truck.
And
Give us the
and a
breakdown
lot
on
of
that.
yeah, a lot of people, I feel like there's a lot of misunderstanding, miscommunication, even if within the industry. So I would argue that there's four different statuses you can be. You can either be a company driver where you're a W-2 employee. You drive the company's truck, get paid as a W-2 employee. Then there's a lease operator, and that's where you go in and say I had a truck and I wanted to be like, okay, you can lease this truck. You make the payments, you pay for insurance, this, that, and the other repairs, and at the end of the lease, you can own the truck. So I call that a lease operator. You have, I'd call an owner operator, which is someone who owns their own truck, handles pretty much all of their business, but they lease onto a carrier, and the carrier takes care of like the back office paperwork, for example. You could even get on their insurance and whatnot. And then there's someone like me who's an independent motor carrier, and I am the owner of, I take care of everything. So I own my own truck. I take care of all the back office stuff. I have operating authority to run the entire United States. And so it all falls on me. So I would argue that those are the four. A lot of people will say like, "Oh, I'm an owner operator," or yeah, or like an independent contractor, but they mean they're an owner operator leased onto someone, for example. But
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, that gives me a better understanding. And I want to let everybody know if you're in the chat and you have questions wherever you are, um, I'm on Rumble live right now, ROKFIN, YouTube, and you know what? I got to get the live chat going on local, so we'll do that too. But let's watch this and let me know, Jeremy, if you can't hear. Okay, this is Fox KTVU. Truck drivers planning protest at Port of Oakland Monday, which would be today.
Claiming that a California law is making it harder for them to do their jobs. KTVU's James Torres live at the port to explain the law that they are upset about and the reason for that protest. James.
Allie, good morning to you. Well, we're seeing a number of these trucks line up here at the Port of Oakland. That's not the unusual thing to see this morning, but these truckers say they're honing in on Assembly Bill 5 that puts a stop to independent truck drivers who help transport goods from ports like here in Oakland. Let's give you a look at what similar demonstrations look like in Southern California. The state bill passed in 2019, but California truck drivers have since challenged the law. At the end of June, the Supreme Court rejected to hear those challenges. Under the law, those independent contractors must now be employees with the company they do business with. And people protesting today say that's detrimental to the number of employees who choose to remain independent, which make up for a majority of truck drivers who work out of the Port of Oakland, saying many of those companies can't hire and many of those drivers don't have the means to create their own companies.
We're going to try and take care of our customers as best as we can, but the port will not be operating. The owner-operators have made it very clear that the port will be completely shut down to send the message.
The port is the 5th busiest in the country. The bill was designed to give more protections to jobs like Uber or Lyft drivers and independent food delivery drivers. California truckers say an exemption should be made for their industry so independent contractors can continue to work. Oakland police now warning drivers this morning to stay out of the area near the port, expecting a massive traffic jam. That protest is set to start a little later this morning, and it's set to last until about Wednesday.
Okay, did he get that right, Jeremy? Did he explain it correctly as far as you understand that law and the effects it could have?
As far as I know, yeah. And it does, and that whole law, as far as I know, it doesn't just affect truck drivers. It affects anyone who wants to be a independent contractor. So like if you're a roofer, for example, or a hairstylist, it affects them as well. For example, like if you had your salon license, I don't know what it is, but you wanted to lease a chair out of a store, you can't do that anymore there. And so as far as the truck drivers go, like I've had the opportunity to get into a port. Well, I have the opportunity since I'm a owner, independent owner there. But from what I've looked into it, it takes quite a bit to get into those ports, like a lot of insurance, background clearing, and all that. So it's quite the hassle alone just to get into the ports if you want to run by yourself. So I can understand why, if you're an owner operator leased onto a company, that this could be very detrimental to them, because they put a huge strain on them just to get the licensing and insurance and all that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what would be the cost that you would accrue in that situation versus what you would have as an independent contractor.
I don't know what the insurance is. I didn't look too much into it, mainly because I don't need to go. I'm not anywhere near a port, so I didn't really need to look into it. But I will say that if you want to become a independent motor carrier, I believe the FMCSA requires you to have like $350,000 worth of insurance. I think that's auto liability. And a lot of these brokers out here, they want you to have even more than that. Like the one that I'm running under, I have to have $1 million and then $2 million aggregate in order to haul their freight. So insurance is a huge game, huge expense.
This is an article that says who's in and who's out. Like you were talking about, they're saying doctors, real estate agents, hairdressers can keep their independent contractor status. So I guess if you're a hairdresser, you're in.
Really?
This doesn't affect you. But truckers, commercial janitors, nail salon workers, physical therapists, and gig economy workers will gain the rights and benefits of employees in California under sweeping workplace legislation passed Wednesday. And have said that this was to help state labor laws to protect workers. Senator Maria Elena Durazo, with one clear test across our state labor laws, we will raise the standards for millions of workers and ensure they gain access to critical rights and benefits. We can make California the global leader in protections for gig workers, janitors, construction workers, and so many people, working people who can't even pay their rent. So like many things, this was passed in the name of helping people. And obviously now we're hearing that people affected by this, I'm not saying all of them. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, do you know truck drivers who might be like, yeah, this is great, or why would they support it?
From what I've heard, a lot of truck drivers are against it. There is one aspect that I could see it really benefiting, like goes to one of the four categories of a truck driver, is the lease operator. Um, I've had a buddy actually. So this is a huge problem in the industry, mainly with the mega carriers. They'll have a truck and say, okay, well, we'll lease you the truck. You can pay for the payments, and at the end of the lease, you have a balloon payment, and the truck's yours. Well, the problem is that vast majority of those are predatory leases, and when you get near the end of your lease, they won't give you the truck because they'll be like, well, you got to pay for all these repairs, you got to do this, that, and the other, and then they're like, well, if I guess if like the cost is just so high, they're like, or we can just put you in this brand new truck and we just continue the lease type of a deal. So I could see it helping out with as far as that goes.
I see.
But other than that, I don't see any other benefit.
What this article is saying is okay, the escalating dispute is increasing pressure on Governor Gavin Newsom to outline a game plan for implementing AB5, a law he signed in 2019 requiring companies to reclassify many of their independent contractors as employees and grant them the requisite benefits. They talk about the protests in Oakland, move through into legal jeopardy the status of California's approximately 70,000 independent truck owner operators who, in order to comply with new regulations, may have to obtain licenses and insurance that trucking officials say could increase their annual operating costs by $20,000, forcing some out of the industry, straining an already overstretched workforce, and raising consumer prices. But some truckers support the law, saying will protect them from wage theft and other abuses.
Yeah,
What would
that's
be an
another one.
abuse? Give me an explanation of an
So
abuse that a truck driver would face.
it's funny they say wage theft because that is another problem in the industry too. In fact, I've had that problem with my first company that I worked for. They're really clever about it, but you'll sit there and you'll count all your time. Like I was an hour, I got paid hourly at that time, and so you'll count your time up, and then you get your paycheck and be like, this doesn't seem right. And then come to find out what they were doing was skimming some of it off the top. It's been a problem for years as far as that goes. And abuse,
What
that's kind of.
Jeremy,
Oh,
hang on
go
one
ahead.
second. With that on that end, they're skimming it off the top. So like, are you paid by mileage or hourly, or how were you saying like that doesn't add up? Were you thinking I work this many hours or I travel this many miles?
So yeah, so at that particular company, I was paid hourly, and so yeah,
I
you'd
see.
calculate your time. A lot of other companies are paid either percentage or mileage, like you said. Um, Pretty much most of the trucking industry is based off of like a cent per mile or dollar per mile rate. Um, but I think a lot of companies are starting to go more hourly, as far as like the local stuff, especially. But yeah, like I'd get my paycheck and be like, this doesn't add up. There's a there's a lot less to this than I should be getting. So that's one abuse. The other abuse, there's several abuses. One of them has kind of gone away with the e-logs. Back in the day, dispatchers would say, well, I need this load moved now. And back in the day, you had paper logs and it'd be like, well, I'm out of hours. I can't do that. And they'd be like, tough, you got to do it anyways. Um, but now they have the e-logs and it's a little bit harder to get around that. But yeah, they'd force you to drive as much as they'd make you drive to death pretty much. Um,
So this article is saying that that law could impact truck drivers in a way that would affect supply chain issues. I guess if they're basically making the argument that if truckers decide this is just too expensive, it's not worth the hassle, I'm going to quit. That California is a pretty big state for
yeah.
ports and whatnot, and so we're going to have even more issues with there already being problems getting stuff out of ports and Doug Murray is in the chat on YouTube, says, I am a company driver. I drive a reefer, which I don't know what that means. Maybe you can explain it. I haven't done a meat protein load in months. Nothing out of Tyson, JBS, Seaboard. It's all been Hershey candy loads between Hershey and Laredo. So I guess, I don't know, whoever's in charge wants to start eating more candy and less meat, but I don't know where all the candy's going. But tell me this, how do you think this affects supply chain issues? Like, we're already, there are a lot of people very concerned about processing plants and disruptions in the food supply and that kind of stuff. And how did the trucks play into all that?
Well, California is, from my understanding, is the 5th largest economy in the world. And I've had the opportunity to haul some freight out of there with my second job. And it's a crazy the amount of truck drivers down there. If there's people in the chat, I'm sure they know. It's like you go down the I-15 or the I-5, and it's like 6 lanes of traffic, and the far 2 left-hand lanes is just lines of semis going one way or the other. So yeah, if they get rid of a lot of those independents, that's a huge hit to the industry and to the nation as well. And we kind of saw that back in 2020 with all the shipping containers held up in the seaport. It's really good. I'll say it's really good for someone like me because the rates just shoot up. They just skyrocket. But in the broader picture, it hurts everyone as a whole.
Well, where you do not have to worry about supply chain issues just yet is AllisonWinePromo.com. So Jeremy knows, he was forewarned. And I should say, there's somebody in the chat that says they're trolling me right now to get on the podcast. I said, Jeremy wasn't trolling me. He actually left a very nice comment on my filling up our Chevy on the other channel that I have, the Off-Gridish Living channel. It costs, well, I think we broke the meter, actually. I think we hit some kind of limit because we got to $175, and that's what we're going to talk about next. So don't go anywhere because we're going to ask Jeremy what it's like filling up his tank in his truck in a second. In the meantime, though, if you go to AllisonWinePromo.com, you're going to get a free bottle of wine on top if you haven't signed up for Bonner Wine yet. And then you get the 3 that are in my trio. One comes from almost 9,000 feet. So it's an extreme altitude Malbec, the Rogue Malbec called, can't talk. I'm telling you, the whole toddler mom / head cold thing. Anyway, I need a glass of wine, I guess. It's from a small farm where they handpick the grapes. So it's a really good Malbec, the Rogue Malbec. And then the other one, they use natural fermentation. So not wines you get at the grocery store. It's a great way to support my work. Go check them out. If you're a coffee or a tea drinker, though, you get 10% off your first order over at twinenginecoffee.com/Allison. You can get a light roast, a dark roast. You can also get a Katura tea. I'm a big fan of the Katura tea. It's tea you make out of coffee fruit, the fruit that's around the bean. And it's all USDA certified organic. These are also high altitude roasts, small family owned company in Nicaragua. And it's just a great company to work with. So go check out twinenginecoffee.com/Allison too. Okay, so let's get back to the topic at hand. How often and what is your typical fuel price at this point in time?
All right. So I don't travel as much as most over-the-road truck drivers. So most of over-the-road truck drivers, they run about 3,000. I think you can even go to like 4,000 miles a week. It just depends on how everything works out logistically and all that. But for me, I run within like the 4 states where I reside, and I can go about I think 950 miles before I have to fuel up, and my tanks at that point is about 180, 190 gallons worth. I get horrible fuel mileage. But yeah, I was looking at my IFTA report, which is the truck drivers have to do that. It's what is it? International Fuel Agreement. International Fuel Tax Agreement is what that is. And I was looking at that, and when I first started my company, that same tank cost me, if I remember right, about $500, and I was paying $3.88 a gallon. And I just fueled up the other day, and it was about the same amount, and it was like $813, I want to say, and fuel went down. It's been going down because wholesales, from what I hear, is going down as well. So I paid what was it, 4.77 a gallon. But there for several months, I was paying like 5.49 a gallon, which is cheaper than most. Because I try to find the cheapest fuel and plus as many discounts as you can. That's kind of the name of the game of trucking. You've got to get those fuel cards to save as much as possible because fuel is the biggest expense, that and repairs.
This article from KHOU says that truck drivers are parking their rigs as gas prices continue to climb. When and how do you think people are balancing the decision to just not work at all versus take the hit? Because I mean, I don't know. I guess at some point, like you're saying, if you're just losing money, then it seems kind of dumb. At the end of the day, though, you got to make something, or I'm sure stay
Yeah.
in the game in some way. Otherwise, I don't know if it's like we haven't heard from Jeremy in a while, so we're just going to go with Alex because he's
Yeah.
around. You know, you're trying to sort of stay in. So, what are the? I guess what's the cost benefit balance that you're walking, and how do you do that?
Well, the trucking industry, especially if you're an independent, you can make a decent amount of money. And some of these guys who have been in the business for a long time, they've built up a cash cow to the point where they could be like, yeah, I'm just going to park it for a bit until these prices go down. As far as me, I've been able to get loads enough to pay for the fuel and still make a decent amount. I have a buddy who's actually now leased onto my company. He had to shut down because things just got out of hand as far as price goes. Like if you're not prepared for it, one major repair can shut you down. Which I can also go into because it's not cheap fixing these things either.
Yeah, give me an example. Tell me about a repair that would be not necessarily unheard of and how much it could cost.
So I actually took my truck in to get an oil change today. They call it a PM or preventative maintenance, and that cost me just over $500 for that. That's just an oil change alone. And I've had the truck in the shop twice before then, and they both went in for the oil change, and I came out a month out of work and like a $12,000 bill, for example. And if you don't maintain your equipment, for example, a new engine can cost you like $40,000 to $50,000. A new transmission can be like $5,000. I mean, just not too long ago, truck prices, if you want to go buy a brand new truck, a brand new truck is like over $200,000. And with since there was no supply, used trucks were going for that much, and it was an insane time. So
Somebody also was asking about if there is a DEF shortage. Does that make sense to you?
I've heard about it, and then I watched a video about I think it was the CEO of Pilot Flying J, which is one of the major chains.
Uh-huh.
And from what it sounded like, Union Pacific was limiting their supply that they were going to give Pilot Flying J. As far as shortages, I don't know. Thankfully, my truck doesn't take DEF, so I don't have to worry about it. But I have heard about fuel shortages in like the East Coast. I don't know if they've remedied that yet. In fact, one of my buddies, he was just driving through Nevada, and he drove by the Loves over there, and he said there was caution tape all over the pumps because they were just
Oh,
shut down.
really?
No fuel.
No fuel.
Hmm.
So tell me about how that's been. I mean, we heard about diesel shortages a while ago. Is it getting any better, or is it just getting worse, or stay the same?
I haven't had a problem everywhere that I've fueled up. It's been fine. I've even talked to the people in the store, and they're like, "Yeah, we shouldn't see a problem. They've got a pretty good reserve as far as they know." Yeah, I just heard other guys they'd go just random stores throughout the country. The East Coast specifically, I heard was they were shutting down stores because they had no diesel. From what I hear, they shipped it overseas to help the war efforts.
Really? I guess
As
I
far
heard
as
that too. I heard that too.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah.
Um, Okay, so Tom, thank you for the very generous donation over on Rumble. We're going to go to locals in a second, where Tom is also a member of my locals community. Just so everybody knows, I am now streaming live on Rumble. Finally got myself there. So go check it out on Rumble. If you haven't, however, joined my locals community, see this. If you're watching on a computer, you just click join, and then you can do a support. It's $5 a month if you want to join my locals community, and then you can put questions in ahead of time for people like Jeremy. You get an exclusive editorial board meeting once a week where you can give me feedback from the week before, guest ideas for the week ahead, all that good stuff. I also do an exclusive media analysis show for supporters over there on Wednesday nights with Bill Doris. So that's always a lot of fun. This is where I posted the questions for you, Jeremy. So let's go to those. What issues does the trucker foresee happening in their industry that no one is talking about?
I don't know. I think everyone's talking about all the issues. There's the driverless trucks, which I don't think they're ever going to come fully on board for decades, if that's the case. The other thing I think is just fuel and wages. But like I said, everyone's talking about all this stuff. I don't know if there's anything that they're not.
So nothing that the media gets wrong on a regular basis when they're talking about truckers, or that you feel like is everyone's talking about this, but this is the other issue that's happening that really needs more attention?
I would say majority of, and I don't watch a whole lot of media. My media is just like YouTube and whatnot. But as far as I know, a lot of, like, if there's any accidents, the blame immediately goes to the truck driver. But most of us truck drivers know that like 95 or more % of all wrecks or crashes on the road are caused by just average cars. We call them four-wheelers. Yeah.
Okay. Without knowing, well, now we know. Were there less DOT inspections during lockdowns?
I never got pulled in during that time, so I don't know on that one. They do blitz on occasions. So, in fact, last week they had what was called a safety blitz, and supposedly they were cracking down on speeding and reckless driving, but no one pulled me over. Maybe it's because I can only do 65, and yeah, I'm a good driver, so.
How many things changed during the COVID pandemic that affected the way you work, either positively or negatively, that we may also just not have heard about?
Well, one of the negatives was a lot of the truck stops either being shut down or limiting their resources. For example, like if you want to go eat food, they're like, "Well, we're shut down. We can't have you dine in and whatnot." And that's very difficult for a truck driver because I mean, we can't pull our truck and trailer into a drive-through, for example. There was a time like I needed food and I parked the truck and I walked through the drive-through to get food. I tried to go in and the guy's like, we're closed. We can't let you in. And so I literally walked through the drive-through just to get food. So that was one of the many downsides of that issue. And as far as a good thing, it didn't affect me because at the time I was hauling ag commodities. But they lifted the hours of service. So truck drivers are limited to how many hours they can work during the day and throughout the week before they have to take either a 10-hour break or 32 hours break. And then during the whole pandemic, they lifted that for crucial loads. So like if you're hauling produce or food or medicine, you weren't bound by the hours of service. You can just drive as long as you want, as long as it was dedicated a COVID load. So that was one benefit.
So that's a benefit because you felt like the rule is restrictive, that you shouldn't have been told you have to take a break every so often.
I'm part of the belief, like the hours of service, it has benefits, and it also has wow, if I could talk, also has
You and me
downsides.
both.
Right. um like the benefits are, I was saying one of the abuses is that a dispatch, if you didn't have hours of service, a dispatcher could be like, no, I need you to go from California to New York tonight, and you have to get there tonight. And
Mhm.
if they didn't have hours of service, you'd either have to put your foot down and say, no, I'm not doing it, or yeah,
I see.
you'd be doing it. And I'm the belief that I don't like it personally because it limits my ability. Like you could make more money if you weren't bound by it. That's one thing. The other thing is like sometimes your clock will burn out at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're still ready to drive, but you're forced to stop to take your 10-hour
Oh,
break.
I see.
And then sometimes it'll say you're good to drive at 2 in the morning, and when you're still tired. So
I see. I see. Yeah. I mean, like, I think about my husband, he's a combat veteran and he does not sleep. So he would be a great truck driver.
right.
I would be a terrible truck driver because I'm like very consistent with getting 8 hours of sleep every night.
Mhm.
So I would think I don't know if I would like the law, but I could see him like killing it as a truck driver because he doesn't sleep at all, and
Well,
that would restrict him for sure.
that's what I loved about ag commodities is because you weren't bound by the hours of service unless you went past their 150 air miles. But other than that, you can run as much as you want. And I was hourly, so I was killing it.
Okay, which rumors that you heard during the lockdown about government actions might still come true and have more drivers quit the business? Why do you think they have?
I don't know about the rumors. As far as the drivers quit the business, I would say that there's more of a myth that there's a driver shortage. I would say that it's more of the mega carriers complaining that they have a huge high turnover rate, um, mainly because they could just get a new hot body in the truck, train them in 3 months, and get them on the road. Um, and then people don't want to be in the mega carrier because they're just treated as a number. And so there's a huge turnover rate. People leaving the mega carriers going to a smaller carrier, like myself, or yeah, just like a mom and pop trucking company.
Okay, I see. So you don't think that right now there's a shortage of truck drivers. It's just that more people are doing what you're doing, trying to regain some independence.
Yeah, I would argue that there isn't a shortage. Like I said, I'd say the mega carriers are just crying. Because if you go on the highways, there's tons of semis out there, and finding a place to park is insane. That's one of the biggest problems in the or one of the many problems of the industry is that there's no place to park. You go to any of these rest stops or a truck stop, and it's just full at like 6 o'clock at night. Um, and during 2020, during the pandemic, the nation saw the highest number of um, new operating authorities filed ever. So, like, yeah, everyone was just leaving the mega carriers and starting their own businesses, and that was a good time to do it because rates were insanely high and there's huge demand.
Well, it sucks if you did that in California, I guess. And now you can't work for yourself. If I
Yeah.
understand the law correctly, maybe it doesn't affect all those people, but uh, are unloading times taking longer due to labor shortages? Is it difficult to get backhaul in certain regions?
Um, I don't work from what I haul. I don't have that issue. I do a lot of drop and hooks, so I don't have that problem. I have heard that it can take a long time to get your trailer unloaded. Um, There was one time when I was a company driver, I've actually been held hostage at a receiver for like 6 hours, 6 or 7 hours, because they unloaded my trailer. They had to count everything, so that's a thing. They can
What does
hold you
that
hostage.
mean? You were held hostage, they had to count
So
everything in your truck, and so you just had to sit there?
yeah, so what happens? Like you go to a shipper or receiver, you back up to the door, and they'll literally put a lock on your trailer so you cannot move their facility.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and sometimes they'll come out and they'll pull your airline, because all the trailers are operated by air brakes, and they'll pull your airline. They'll put a lock on your airline so you cannot move at all. Um,
Can you get
I think I
out
had.
of the truck, or just the truck can't move?
I mean, you can unhook your trailer and leave that way, but the trailer's staying.
Gotcha.
For this one instance, I was one of 2 drivers that were there. The other one was an independent motor carrier, and she had been there for like 11 hours waiting. And yeah, literally, they just had us. It took them like, I think, 2.5 hours to unload our trailer, but we were there for, like I said, 7. I was there for 7. She was there for like 11. And come to find out, they were holding us hostage to count all the tires. It was a tire load, counting all the tires to make sure they were all there, they were all correct. And if they weren't, they were going to blame us, when all we were doing was just transporting it from the shipper to them. And they came out and broke the seal, so there was no way of us tampering it. But yet they were going to blame us for it if there's anything wrong. And they actually tried to do that with me.
What is one of the craziest things that's ever happened to you while on the road, besides being held hostage for 6 hours? Just made me think I should give you a chance to talk about, I don't know, just something you saw. Like, do you see, like, one time there was a plumber on Theo Von's podcast. If people don't watch Theo Von, he's a comedian and he does like some really funny interviews, and he had a plumber on, and the guy was talking about one thing that people don't know about his job is that he often has to break to one spouse or another that one is cheating on the other, because he finds all kinds of like condoms and whatnot in the pipes. And just like how crazy that is to be the guy stuck in the middle there, having to explain to somebody, cold turkey, what's going on and why their toilet's not working, and the fact that they're having serious marital problems that maybe they didn't know about. Give me like something that truck drivers see, or like maybe for you, just a weird thing that you feel like your job gives you some insight into that. And maybe it's not even that weird. Maybe it's more serious, that we don't talk about very often, or the rest of us
Oh,
don't get to see.
I don't know if I've seen anything that weird. But I'll say there's a lot of weird drivers out there. There was one time, it was like, I think 2 o'clock in the morning, and this one car, he was making a right-hand turn, and I was just sitting there. I just randomly looked over at him, and next thing I know, he jumped this median. There's sparks flying everywhere. I'm like, what are you doing?
Do you ever drive in Florida?
I haven't been anywhere east of Colorado.
Okay, because
So
my home state of Florida,
mhm.
everybody drives like the wrong way on the highway. So I was wondering if you ever came across somebody coming at you, going 75 miles an hour in your truck.
Thankfully I haven't. Not yet, anyways.
Somebody says, go work for the moving companies, and then you find out who hides kinky stuff in the bedroom. So you could go do that. Okay, let's go take another question from locals. Do truckers have any secrets relating to law enforcement, highway patrol, or are they the same as the rest of us?
I wish I had any secrets, but it feels like truck drivers are targeted more. In fact, I was driving through Wyoming on the 80, and I was the slowest guy there because my truck's old. And I watched this highway patrolman. He passes me. He pulls out into the median. He waits for me to drive on by, and then he pulls behind me and pulls me over. And he gets up to my door. He's like, "I've got good news." He's like, "You didn't do anything wrong or illegal, but I got bad news. We're doing an inspection on you." So we're we're
Stuck.
targeted more than most. Yeah,
Dang. It must be your beard.
must
Put
be.
you out there. Here we go. As a janitor, I only see truck drivers still working, and they have to wait and wait for a guy behind a desk to get off break, and hopefully remember to call them up as soon as load is ready.
Mm.
I don't know
Yes,
where this person's a janitor, but
it seems like we're and a lot of us do it to ourselves. But it seems like we're lower humans, I guess you can say. But yeah, like one of my buddies, he just got into a new company, and he got to the receiver, and the guys at the dock are like, you're unloading your trailer, and he's like, "No, I'm not. I just deliver it." They're like, no, you got to unload your trailer, and they're very adamant about it. Yeah, we're
No
treated
way.
lower, but like I said, a lot of the drivers out there do it to themselves and make this industry not that great. Back in the day, back in like the 80s and 70s, there was a lot more respect for truck drivers and for themselves. They dress nice, and now you go to the Loves and people are dressed in baseball shorts and flip flops and throwing
What
pee
do you
bottles
wear
out
when
the.
you drive your truck?
I wear jeans. Lately, I've broken my own rule. I said I'll never wear baseball shorts ever. But I've broken my rule because my truck is old. It's a 1984 Kenworth, and I have no AC, and I have to sleep during the day, and so
Oh my gosh.
it gets over 100 degrees in my truck, and so I'm like, you know what? I'm not putting those hot pants back on. So I've broken my own rule, but um, most of the time it's wearing jeans, boots, and t-shirts. So
Why do you think when you're talking about losing respect for themselves or for the industry, why do you think that is? Is that just generally maybe across the board, lots of people have I don't know, maybe lost the customs of the class of
mhm.
the way things were done 50 or 60 years ago, or is it specific to trucking?
I'd say that. Also, there's a huge, and I have no problem with them, um, but in the name of the driver shortage, they have imported a lot of immigrants in to fill some of the seats. Canada, I know for sure, has done a lot of that, and I'm not saying they do this. I'm not pinning on anyone specific, but just across the board. Like you go to a truck stop or any parking spot and there's just trash all over the place. One of the biggest
Mm,
things I'm sure everyone knows, they'll look on the side of the road and there's a bottle of pee. That's a huge problem. And
gross.
yeah, it's just stuff like that. Like a lot of people need to clean up.
Yeah, that's gross. I left this up so I could remember to ask you. I want to hear his stories about the lot lizards. What is a lot lizard?
So I don't have any dealings with them, but
Is a prostitute?
it is, and
Okay.
it's a serious
Sex
problem.
worker.
A lot of truck drivers joke about it. But it is a serious problem. In fact, there's a company. It's called TAT, Truckers Against Trafficking, and a lot of these women are in human trafficking situations. So it is a lot of truck drivers make light of it, but it is a very serious problem. I have yet to encounter anything like that. Thankfully, but yeah, it is a problem. I think back east is more of a problem with it.
Um, Dickey writes the vast majority of the shortage is within the over the road or non-local for hire truckload sector. Does that make sense to you?
Um, yeah, because a lot of the freight, there's a lot of freight that comes out of California, so I can kind of understand that.
Is that what you
Um,
think he's talking about, California
I
specifically?
think so. Or like any of the ports, because like they're in Washington, has a port
Uh-huh.
as well.
Right.
So
What engine do you have? A 425 Cat?
no, I've got a 400 big cam Cummins in mine.
Okay. Over on locals, you already explained the first, right? Do you own your own trucking company with your own dispatch, or do you get dispatched via a company? We answered that one, right?
Yeah, I dispatch my own all my
Uh-huh.
loads.
Um, okay. Dispatch means a whole lot, while leading drivers feel they make a lot. The figures dispatch show drivers are not the real numbers. Let's just say I know people. Do you fully own your truck?
It's under loan, so the bank owns it, but I could easily own it tomorrow if I wanted to. Yeah.
Okay, and then will truckers collectively boycott trucking in California? It looks like some of them are anyway. That was what we started the show talking about.
Yeah.
Um,
It's hard to get every trucker on the same page.
yeah.
There's been so many uh, people trying to do strikes throughout the whole pandemic and all that, and there's little pockets here and there, and then like the People's Convoy and all
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, what were your thoughts on that?
I actually wanted to join. I don't know exactly all that they were standing for. It kind of sounded like they were fighting for like COVID. What am I looking for?
I think it was like I had a couple of them on, and I think their main message was no mandates for the
Yeah,
vaccine.
yep. Which that's great because I personally don't want to take it.
Be
I was gonna
careful what you
go.
say about it right now because we're live
I
on
know
YouTube.
that's why
But
that's
you
why
are
I'm
allowed to
trying.
say you don't want to take it.
Yep,
You can say that.
yep. So, but yeah, I wanted to go just to be supportive and support for our freedoms and all that personally.
Okay. What is the crime situation on the highway crossing Texas, in particular on the long and sparsely populated stretches of Highway 90?
I've never traveled through Texas. I've got a buddy who has, and I don't remember what he said. He's told me a lot about Montana. You don't want to drive through Montana during the night because there's
Really?
people who will, yeah, I guess there's cults that will try
Really?
to take you out of the truck. Yeah, and you
What?
won't be seen ever again.
What in Montana?
Yeah, that's according to him. So I haven't ran into them. I've driven through Montana a few times, but that's what he says. Don't go down any back highways during the middle of the night, I guess.
Oh my god, I didn't know that about Montana. That's funny. Okay, I wouldn't have I would think Idaho over Montana. I knew somebody who said she was in a cult in Idaho.
I wonder
And
what
no
part,
disrespect
because
to Idaho. I love Idaho, but it does seem
I'm
like
actually
more likely there you'd have a cult come after your truck in Idaho. No?
I haven't. Well, actually, there was. I'm actually from Idaho and born and raised, and I have heard of a few cults. I wonder which one they're talking about.
So wait, so do they want you or do they want what's in the truck? I'm just curious, like these cults that steal people, the body snatchers of the truck drivers, they want you or they want
Um,
what's in the truck?
I don't know. I'd probably both, actually, in some cases. If it was up to me, I'd probably just try to steal the truck. But I mean, there's some crazy people out there that want both. So
I'm gonna have to investigate this one a little bit further. I run Texas and Montana. I've never had any issue. LOL. That's funny.
yeah, same. I mean, same here. I've never had the issue in Montana either.
We'll have to get to if you're a truck driver through Montana and you've ever had body snatchers run after your truck, please contact me, AliceTomorrowMedia@protonmail.com. Ask him about truck drivers trying to run each other off the road because they get into a fight on the radio on the CB. I have seen it many times on the highway. Is that true?
Mm. Well, there's a lot of people who talk very big on the CB if they have a CB, because a lot of these drivers don't run CBs anymore, which is a problem. Um, like back in the day, back in like the 70s and 80s, from what I've heard, there was really no accidents on like Highway 80 through Wyoming. And if anyone knows about that, they get huge high winds, over 60-mile plus over there, and like whiteouts and whatnot. And I guess back in the day that never happened. But since no one's running CBs to call ahead and whatnot, it's caused a huge problem, because like one guy gets into a wreck and it just causes a huge chain reaction. But it is a problem. There's a lot of, and I'm guilty of it. I haven't chewed anyone out on the CB, but when you're a truck driver, there is quite a bit of pride. It's a very bad thing. But you're this big thing on the road, and someone cuts you off. I'm like, I'm gonna, I can't have that happen.
I just had this thought I could delete like the whole beginning of the podcast and then just have this section of like the body snatching cults and then running each other off the road. And when people see like why are truck drivers quitting and they just think that
Yep.
that's all it is, just total chaos out there. Okay. Any hassles and trends thereabouts from the Border Patrol's inspection situation?
I wonder what, like the southern border, or I'm wondering if
Maybe.
that's what
Yeah.
they're.
And you're not really down there much, are you?
I'm not.
Well, I don't know. Do you drive near Canada?
Nope.
Okay.
The closest I've been to is like Arlington, Washington.
Oh, that's where we used to board my horse. Shout out to
Okay.
Arlington, Washington.
Nice.
Now she's on our property where we rent until we can finally I'm not sure what you think about the real estate market, but
Oh, it's insane.
Well, we're hoping that things come down significantly in the next year and that we can finally buy some land. And then we're gonna move Sassy and our crazy horse, Megan the Stallion. Somebody gave me which her name was just Megan, but then someone said we should name her Megan the Stallion. So after
Awesome.
what I don't know what you call her, a rap art, hip hop artist, whatever.
Mm.
So now I call her Megan the Stallion. Okay. At the beginning of March 2020, the Yellow Vest movement was at its peak in France and the government at its weakest. Then we had the first lockdown, no gathering allowed. Every trade union backed the strictest measures against COVID, even asking for more restrictions to protect workers. Whatever one thinks about COVID, surely it saved the French government. At the time, I thought that truckers could have toppled it within 1 week by shutting down the supply chain, but it didn't go that way at all. Instead, we are now in a state of complete submission to whatever the government decides. I guess my question is, how does it look in the US? Are unions aligned with the powers that be? Any chance for a popular movement of truckers when people start worrying about food supply? And the most difficult, how do we move beyond the division leaves us powerless? So you want to take any of those first, or I could reread them for you later? What do you think? Can you see them on the screen?
Yeah, I can see them. I don't think there's any trucking unions. I think there was back in the day. I don't think there's any anymore. And we've kind of brushed over this. It's hard to get truckers aligned to do anything. I know during the pandemic, I was a part of several different groups, and it was like every week someone was saying, "Oh, we got to shut down. We got to shut down for the day. We got to shut down for the week." Everyone shut down, and yet the freeways were full of trucks. So it's tough to get truck drivers aligned on one movement. I have to say hats off to like the People's Convoy, and I forget what the one went up in Canada was called.
I
Wasn't that the
think
Freedom
that was the
Convoy?
people, or no, the People's Convoy was the one here. Freedom, the
Yeah,
Freedom
Freedom
Convoy.
Convoy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my hats off to them. I know Canada was really, they're getting really oppressed up there. I watched a little bit of that, and it was, yeah, insane. Um, but yeah, it's if all the truckers were to shut down, like, and stop moving freight, this nation would literally grind to a halt.
There are a lot of, I mean, obviously, yeah, you're right. The trucking industry would have a significant effect. But if you think about any workplace, I mean, if even I think like a third of the people who, because I have people all the time on this podcast from so many different industries and institutions, and if like a third of the people who thought like them, because I focus on censored people, and they always talk about how a lot of people agree with them, but they're just too scared to speak up or push back on whatever is being forced upon them. That pretty much any place has enough dissenters to to change things, but just the vast majority of people just like to complain in the background and not really do much. And
Yeah.
I don't, I just probably think that's a human thing, not necessarily a trucker thing. But maybe people who drive trucks like to be on their own. They're not really like groupies. That's why they do what they do. So it could also be a personality thing too. I could see that.
Yeah. And in fact, my buddy and I we were having a conversation about this the other night, and yeah, I mean, we're both about, fighting for our freedoms, but then we were saying, yeah, nothing will happen about it, and I got to thinking in the back of my mind, I was like, yeah, because part of the problem is I won't, like, I'm too busy working to do anything unless I actually was forced to step into that situation.
Okay. How many car drivers a day do you wish you could revoke their license because of their bad driving?
All of them, all of them.
What's the
Oh,
most dangerous thing that a car driver does around a truck that we should all know we should stop doing?
well, I'd say majority of it is cutting us off. Um, from my understanding, most people who have Class D license or drive cars, their understanding is like, oh, they're a big truck, they've got big brakes, they've got more brakes. Well, we do, but our stopping distance is much, much, much greater than what a car can. Um, so cutting us off is one of one of the things that people need to stop doing. I drive a cab over, and every time people cut me off, it's literally like a few feet away from the front of my cab.
Oh man.
Um, I literally say they shaved the hood off my truck because it's so close. Um, Not only that, brake checking is another one. In fact, I had a gentleman do that to me.
What does that mean?
So like he just got into road rage, passed me furiously, and then got in front of me, and we were coming up to a construction zone too. And so we're all merging into the one lane, and he furiously passed me, got in front of me, and slammed on his brakes.
What an
Um,
idiot.
and I locked up my brakes trying to stop. And yeah,
Do those people realize that you would just run right over them and kill them? I mean,
I don't
honestly,
think so.
they
I don't
don't.
think so.
They're just too enraged to think through the fact that they just are stopping in front of a moving vehicle like 20 times their size.
Yeah.
What is
Um,
your daily cost of running a long haul truck, including fuel, maintenance, insurance, and any other operation cost?
that varies. Um, so it varies between there's many different variables. So we went over the fuel. Within a 2-day span, I spent about $800 in fuel plus. That's about 800 and 900 miles a trip. So there's that. My insurance, I pay just over $800 a month for that, which is really low. Which I'm very thankful for. My buddy, in fact, the one that's leased on to me now, when he was running on his own authority, he was paying over $3,000 a month for insurance, and that alone was like
That's amazing.
would break him. And like I said, my truck being older, when I have a breakdown, it's normally like $12,000 for that. And plus, we have all the taxes.
Jeez.
In fact, I need to file my 2290, which is a heavy highway use tax. It's $550 a year. Our license plates are about $2,000 a year that we have to do. So it's not cheap. Year to date, I can say this: year to date, I have made $112,000 running my own trucking company. Like 79,500 of that has been all expenses.
Wow.
hmm
That's amazing. So it's an expensive job to get into. So why would somebody get into it? What would be the reasons you'd want to be a truck driver?
There is money in it. You can make a decent living. Like if just in a big picture, you can make a lot of money. I've actually got debt free due to trucking.
Oh, nice.
Um, so there's that. But if you were to break it down like hourly, the amount of time that you're away from home, it's actually you get paid less. On average, you get paid less than a minimum wage because just the amount of time
Wow.
that you're out on the road. Um, but that's not to say that's every case. There are a lot of people who make really good livings out here. And
It's tough with a family, huh, to be on the road a lot. You have
mm,
kids, right?
yes, it is tough. I've got a 4-year-old and a 5-month-old, and um, it's crazy. I'm not gone as much as most of these guys out here. Some of these guys are out there for like 2 weeks to months at a time before they get to go home. I'm out like 2 days on average, and then get to go home. But it just in
Oh,
that
nice.
time frame alone, um, like you miss out on so much.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the,
My husband travels for work, and especially with young kids, like our 2-year-old producer, as we call her,
mhm,
um, she changes every day. She
oh
learns new
yeah.
words and stuff like that. And yeah, I understand what you're saying. Okay,
Well,
float or double clutch?
I'll add
Yeah,
one
go ahead.
more thing. As far as like you said, what would make you want to be in the industry? Um, the freedom alone is one thing that I love about it. You're alone, so loners like me enjoy it, and plus you have the freedom of the road. You're always on the move. You're always going to new places. So that's one thing that keeps me in, even though there's a lot of times I just want to tell my boss that I quit. But that's me. But
I know what
um,
that's like, telling your boss you wanna quit. My
yep.
boss is too. She doesn't, especially, like, yesterday, I was really sick. I wasn't sure we were gonna even be able to do this podcast, and,
hmm
um, still I have to figure out, 'cause she's sick too, and she doesn't know. It's like she doesn't know. I mean, she's just running around like a maniac. I can't eat she
hmm
so, I'm trying to, like, I bought her a little pool. Like, maybe she'll just relax in the pool, but, even the pool, it's like she's not sitting there. We gotta make things out of the water. We have to splash
Yep.
everything. We have to get the dog in. The dog has to get in. We have to give the dog a bath. It's like a million things. So yes, that's my boss. And then second is the
Nice.
podcast. So I know none of them are very forgiving on sick days or whatever. Um,
Yep.
okay, yes, float or double clutch.
Um, Floating all day long. I think I've tried to double clutch once and I failed at it. Personally, I think floating is the way to go. And if those who don't know, double clutching is in order to change your gear, you push in the clutch, pull the transmission out of gear, let off, push in the clutch, put it back into gear. Whereas floating the gears, you're just matching your engine RPM with the next gear of your transmission. And so instead of having to use the clutch, the gear shifter just goes in or goes out and then back in. Um, you try to do it smoothly. Sometimes you grind gears, but just takes practice.
I'm just learning how to drive a truck. We got a Chevy
Mhm.
Silverado, as you know, because
Yep.
again, for people who are just joining us, the reason Jeremy made the biggest mistake of his life and is on this podcast right now is because he commented on my YouTube video on my other channel, which is Off Gridish Living. If you're watching this, well, wherever you're watching it, we have another channel where we're just documenting our move towards homesteading. So it's OFFGRIDISH Living, Off Gridish Living. Go subscribe. And I did a funny parody video
Mhm.
about what it was like to fill up a diesel truck for the first time. And like I said, I don't think we even totally filled it up. I mean, it said full, but I think we hit a
Mhm.
limit on the credit card or on the pump or
Still,
something like that.
if I remember right, you're paying like over $6 a gallon. That's
Yeah,
just insane,
619.
man.
I know. Yeah. So it stopped at 175 exactly, which is probably good for my sanity for the first time filling that up. However, since my last fill up, we're not even at half a tank yet. Um, just under a quarter of a tank, and we've gone almost 2 weeks. So I will say one
Nice.
thing, it has made me much more organized about, like, trips into town and,
Mhm.
do we really need to do no, let's just have fun in the yard again today. And then
Yep.
it's like, I feel like rich, like I should just start I get out the dollars out of my wallet and I just start throwing them around the living room because I'm like, I didn't go anywhere today in my truck. And I give my daughter $50 bills. Do whatever you
Mhm.
want with it, Lily. Because we saved $50 today. We didn't go into town and we throw parties and everything. Okay. I think this was talking about the California law, the independent contractor law we started with, but is this worse than the emissions laws enacted a couple years ago? I know many truck drivers stopped going to California after that took effect. There was another question too from somebody on YouTube about environmental regulations and how that affects truckers going into California.
And so there's a lot of misunderstandings, and I don't know if I know everything about it. Obviously I don't know everything. But that was a big deal, and from my understanding, when they put that in place, it's specific in California, they call it CARB. I don't remember. I think it's Clean Air Act or something like that. Um, but yeah, if you have a truck like mine, which is pre-emission, um, the common understanding was that you couldn't take a pre-emission truck into California. But since I bought this truck here, I'm on a few Facebook groups with people of the same trucks, and I've asked them, and they're like, "Can you go into California with these trucks?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, we go in there every week." Um, from my understanding, is that the CARB enforcers, they hang out more by the port event, like the seaports. Um, California Highway Patrol, it sounds like they don't even care about the emissions. They're more worried about like if your truck is roadworthy, if you're keeping up on your logs and stuff like that. From what it sounds like, the port of entries that go into the state of California, it sounds like they don't really care. But yeah, if that was one of the reasons why people stopped going into California. Other than that, and then there's many things why. Fuel is more expensive. It usually takes like 2 days to get in and out. So for example, like the last company that I worked for before I started my own company, we would go to California every week, and it was like 1 day in and then 1 day out because just the amount of traffic. And a lot of people just don't want to deal with that.
Mm-hmm. I figured I should play this video since we were talking about it. This is the video I did about filling up our truck that Jeremy commented on. Again, that's how I found him, and I suckered him into coming on the podcast to talk about being a truck driver. So everybody go subscribe, Off Gridish Living. Okay, there was another question on locals. Let me get back to the original post while we're watching this.
I don't know if I mentioned it, but at the
Yeah.
beginning of the year, the same. So what I just filled up the other day was like 100, or it was like 800 and let's just say $14. That same tank back in January cost me like $515. So.
Oh, really? So it's a significant difference.
Yeah, and I was looking, like I said, back at my IFTA, and I've got it calculated of how many cents per mile it cost me just in diesel. Back in January, it was like 62 cents a mile, and now I'm pushing like 99 cents a mile as far as diesel goes.
That's a lot. Someone asked if you have a ton of accidents because you're paying $3,000 for insurance.
I don't pay that. He does have marks on his record, and he's also young. He's younger than 25. So,
Okay.
and it also reflects the price of his truck because his truck is under loan, and his loan's a lot higher than mine. So that all plays an effect.
Does Jeremy have a YouTube? I guess you should have a YouTube, Jeremy.
No, I thought about it, but man, I don't know.
Okay, one person was asking back to the California law for the independent contractors. Best case, worst case scenario.
Best case, worst case scenario. I'd say I believe if it is going to be as bad as they think, there's going to be a lot of supply chain bottlenecks. Best case scenario, it might the people who said that they weren't going to go into California, they might actually go back into California because it's going to be. So one of the channels that I watch on occasion, it's Smart Trucking. He's out of Canada, and he made a little short. It said the gold rush is in California, and he was packing his bags, packing his semi, and saying, all you independent contractors, head down to California because the rates are going to be great. So that's one benefit, but again, it's going to affect everyone as far as that goes.
Yeah. Allison needs some smelling salts to fill that pickup. This is the end of my video. This is the one that Jeremy saw. So yes, this is what my channel looks like over there. Off Gridish Living. Okay, everybody, so go subscribe to Off Gridish Living and follow our journey towards homesteading and high gas prices with a diesel truck. Okay, let's go back over to our questions here. Since I retired in 2009 after 42 years behind the wheel, I only have a few questions. They are for today's drivers. During the 34 years of wide open cross-country driving, the first 13 on the non-union side and then 21 year as a Teamster freight hauler, I never turned off my CB radio, not ever. It saved me hundreds of times. Is it some kind of idiotic company policy, or are today's drivers not taught about this huge advantage on safety? I guess basically saying they're not using the CB.
Mm-hmm. No, it is there. I feel like and I don't know for sure, but I would feel like that a lot of these guys who are in the industry, they're just a warm body to get in the driver's seat. And plus they're like, oh, hey, I'm going to make, I guess Walmart's hiring on people for $100,000 a year as a company driver. So, there's good money to be made. And a lot of people just aren't in the true trucking culture. So there's that aspect. And then a lot of these company drivers, company trucks just don't even have CBs. I know when I became a company driver, I didn't have one for a little bit, but I made a point to it because I was going over the blues over in Oregon, and we'd have whiteouts over there. And so I realized the true need of a CB, because you can get a hold of people who are going in the opposite direction and be like, hey, what's behind you? What do we have to look forward to? The other thing is during a city, you could come up to a traffic jam just like that. And if you're not prepared for it, you can cause a wreck because
Yeah.
you just can't stop fast enough.
It looks to me like you can still be independent in Cali as a trucker, but you have to actually be independent. What does that mean?
So that's what I was saying. So like the ones that are affected, they're the owner operators and the lease operators, and so they don't have their operating authority. So if you're in California and you want to still be an independent, and own your own truck, all that, you have to go through the FMCSA and get your operating authority, which is it's called an MC number. And what that'll do is that grants you as a motor carrier. And so you are authorized to haul freight throughout the entire nation. Instead of being, for example, like I said, I've got a driver leased onto me. He owns his own company. He has his own DOT number, which is another number that the FMCSA gives out for an owner operator, for example. But you have to have that MC number in order to be an independent motor carrier.
Okay.
And so if you had that, you can still run in California. Yeah.
Okay. Tesla's electric semis will have a range of 500 miles, but the actual distance between recharging will be closer to 350 miles and a 45-minute recharge time. Do the 350 range and 45-minute recharge time sync with the limits on how long truckers are allowed to drive in a 24-hour period?
No. If you have a non-governed truck and you could do most of the speed limits, because like in Utah, for example, if you drive through there, they don't have a split limit. In some states, you have a split limit, like four-wheelers or cars go like 80 miles an hour. Trucks can only do like 70. Um, if you're in a state like Utah, for example, I think Wyoming is another one, where their speed limit's 80. And so, trucks can do 80, cars do 80. It's not uncommon for a over-the-road truck driver or regional truck driver to go over 700 miles in a day. And that's with the hours of service, you're allowed 11 hours to drive. You can drive 8 hours before you have to take a 30-minute break, and then you drive the rest of your 11, and then you have to take a 10-hour break. So within that time frame, you could put down over 700 miles in one day.
That's amazing.
And like I said, if you're an over the road driver, you can put in over 3,000 miles a week. 3
Wow.
to
My
4.
back hurts just thinking about it. Do you do yoga?
No, I've gone to the chiropractor, and I think she cringes every time she sees me.
Oh, man. Yeah, you should try doing Bikram yoga. It really helps my back. I've been doing it for almost 12 years now. It's
Yeah.
all spine it's a lot cheaper than going to a chiropractor, but if you have to do it regularly to get some benefit. One of my teachers says she's gained a half an inch or 3/4 of an inch on her height from doing it. I'm a big fan. I
Nice.
go every Saturday.
Mhm.
Okay. How badly will this impact even those who start avoiding California? I'm guessing it affects Nevada, Arizona, and Oregon at least. Do you think people will avoid California, truck drivers? Or does
I
it
mean,
not affect them unless they're just registered? They have to be registered in California.
if they're registered in California.
Okay.
I've actually talked to a couple of independents down there, and this is before AB5 passed, and there was a loophole, and their main thing was the emissions. So, for example, you can't have a pre-emission truck registered in California. If you do, it costs like an arm and a leg. And so one loophole is that people would register their truck in a neighboring state, so like Arizona, Nevada, for example. And so I believe you could do the same thing to get around the AB5 law, but you'd have to be either an independent, or I guess if you're an independent, doesn't matter. But maybe you'd have to go. I don't know, really. I don't know. Yeah, I guess you'd be a resident of California, so it'd still affect you.
Mhm.
So I guess you
Um,
can lease onto a company. You can lease onto, say, like me, who's registered in another state. I guess that'll work.
mhm. Yeah, that would be interesting. I'm sure people are gonna start figuring out ways to get around this. They always
Mhm.
do. Um, Tesla claims their soon-to-be released electric semis will be able to maintain 70 miles per hour even when going up a 6% grade slope. Do you see any problems going uphill at these speeds?
If you're a good driver, I don't see so. It's going down is the problem.
Yeah,
Going up is not an issue, but there's a lot of people, and there's so many times, like going down a 6% grade, you get to like middle of the way down the hill, and a lot of these inexperienced drivers, they're smoking their brakes, which is, you smoke them too much, and they won't be able to stop you at all, and then you're a runaway.
great.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's where when you see runaway truck ramp or something
Yep.
when you're like going through the Rockies or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, okay, and another Tesla question. They've developed a special glass for their Class 8 semis. They claim cracked windshields are a common problem with keeping a truck in service. How problematic are cracked windshields?
Um, they are a problem, because I mean, obviously we're on the road all the time, so rock chips are a problem. I would say it's more of a DOT issue, because a lot of the times, like, you have a crack in your windshield and you can still drive. I mean, everyone out here, I'm sure, has at least at one point in time owned a vehicle with a cracked windshield, and you're like, yeah, I can still see, so I'll drive it. It's kind of the same way with the truck driver, but if you get pulled into a port of entry and they do an inspection on you, it won't put you out of service, but they'll give you a fix-it ticket, for sure. I've actually had
Uh,
that happen as a company driver a couple times. I told them to fix it, and they're like, "Meh, we won't do that."
we trade to get our truck. We traded in the Jeep we had, and I gotta say, I love that Jeep for its ability to get you in and out of
Mhm.
muddy or snowy situations that many vehicles would not be able to get in and out of. But it would get a cracked windshield. I mean, it would take a month. It
Mhm.
really because they're, like, vertical.
Mhm.
They're at, like, a 90-degree angle, and the windshields so finally, we just gave up and just stopped replacing the windshield. Um,
It gets
and then we
expensive
just
after a while.
yeah, it's ridiculous. So we're like, that's just what we're just trading it in.
Mhm.
And we traded it in. We brought it to the dealership with the cracked windshield. We're like, sorry, you deal with it.
I've
Somebody
actually had
told
a
me
I've actually
yeah,
had
go ahead.
an owl fly into my windshield once.
An
That was
owl?
Yeah, that was quite the experience. Right into the driver's side window.
What did it do? Did it go through
Oh,
the windshield?
it yeah, it almost did, but it just shattered the entire windshield.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
I guess I wouldn't expect an owl to do that, but I guess going at a certain speed. I
Mhm.
mean, maybe like well, then again, I guess if they say deer can kill you when you hit them, then I guess an
Yeah.
owl can create significant damage. That sucks.
Well,
I like owls a lot.
and from what I
But
hear, they also fly at that perfect angle or that perfect height, right at the line of semi windows. So,
really, owls do.
mhm,
Because 'Cause they're what, low flyers?
yeah, mhm,
Huh? Because 'Cause they're looking for prey. Is
yep,
that why?
that's why. Yep.
Interesting. What was I gonna say? Somebody mentioned that I have a DEF what does that stand for again? Diesel
Oh, diesel exhaust fluid. Yeah, your pickup
yeah.
has it. Yep, it's that
I
blue.
have it on my pick. So now I know
Mhm,
what that blue thing is.
yep.
I don't know before. Um, any final thoughts, Jeremy, before we go? I really appreciate your taking the time to do this today. I've learned a lot.
Well, thank you for having me on. I don't think I have any final thoughts. Hopefully, we can keep the supply chain going, and yeah, keep the stores stocked because that's becoming a ever increasing problem.
Yeah, I guess maybe I should say last question,
Mhm.
for the average consumer out there who just, I don't know, they're paying attention to this, and maybe some are more concerned than others, would like to prepare just in case. Any advice or just any, I guess, signals they should be paying attention to? Hey, if this happens, that's when you should be like, all right, things could get bad. I don't know, just if you're somebody who wants to be a little bit better prepared, not necessarily caught off guard.
I mean, just the fuel prices alone are one thing to be concerned about, but if you start seeing fuel shortages, I would say a real big problem. I mean, right now we're in such a weird time. We have been for last several years, so I think it's always wise just to be prepared and just be ready. Hopefully, we can get these fuel prices down. There really is no reason for it to be this way, but yeah, if you start hearing like diesel shortages, I'd say that's probably one red flag to look
Yeah.
forward to.
Yeah, and I hear from people that diesel used to be cheaper
Oh yeah, I remember. So this was back before I was
than
like,
regular
I don't
gas, I
know.
should say.
I think I was like 10 years old at the time. I still remember it to this day when gas was $1.25, like gasoline, and diesel was 99 cents. And from my understanding, diesel is actually a byproduct of gasoline.
Uh,
So it's, I still wonder why, other than maybe profits is the reason why it's higher.
yeah, it doesn't seem to make any sense,
Mhm.
especially if some of the most important industries, agriculture, trucking,
Mhm.
rely on that product. Why is that
That's,
one?
I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, you look at all these farmers and yeah, they've got a lot of tractors to fill up with hundreds, thousands of acres of land to farm. Like I
Yeah,
said,
there's
I used to haul ag commodities, and some of these places are huge, and they've used
Mhm.
tons of tractors and all sorts of equipment. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, thousands of dollars a week, I'm
Mhm.
sure, going into that. Okay. Thank you everybody for watching. Jeremy, thanks for doing this. Again,
Yeah.
don't forget, if you want to join my editorial board, go to alisonmorrow.locals.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Off British Living channel where you can see more about my heart attacks over diesel. Don't forget that I'm also live on Rumble finally now. Thanks for everybody watching on ROKFIN as well. And Jeremy, when do you hit the road again?
Actually tonight, I've got a load at I think it was midnight. No, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm going. So just local
Wow.
stuff.
So
So nothing crazy.
we need to let you go to sleep. Okay. Bye everybody. See you next time. Thanks again, Jeremy.
Yep, thank you.